All right, let's jump right in. We're doing something kind of fun today. Yeah, a little different. We're going to dive into a self-help book.
Oh,
But here's the twist. It's actually written by a teenager
really?
for teenagers. It's called Growing Beyond the Syllabus.
Interesting.
And I'll admit, when I first picked it up, I was a bit skeptical. Like,
Yeah.
what life-changing advice
Mhm.
could a teenager really offer?
Sure.
But let me tell you, I was blown away.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually packed with these really insightful takes on things like self-belief
Uh,
and having a positive outlook, even managing your time, stuff we can all relate to.
Absolutely. Those are pretty universal themes.
Exactly. And what I thought was really cool is how the author takes these big ideas and makes them super relatable.
I think that's key, especially for a younger audience.
Totally. It's like you're getting advice from a friend who just happens to be really wise for their age.
Yeah, not some, stuffy self-help guru.
Exactly.
So what specifically caught your eye in growing beyond the syllabus?
Well, one of the first things that jumped out was this whole idea of perspectives, like how everyone sees the world a little differently.
Right, and how important it is to recognize that, especially in today's world.
Totally. And the book uses this great example. Imagine identical twins, right? Same upbringing, same genes,
Uh-huh.
but they end up having totally different passions.
Yeah. It's like that saying, perspectives are like fingerprints.
Right.
Everyone's is unique.
Exactly. And in the book, the author talks about how he was actually really good at science,
Okay.
but he felt this pull towards commerce.
Interesting. So, going against the grain a little bit.
Yeah. Even though everyone around him was kind of pushing him toward the whole science path,
Hmm.
like it was the smarter option or whatever.
That pressure to conform can be tough, for sure, especially for teenagers.
Totally. And you know what I found really interesting? He talks about this concept called the third ray. Have you ever heard of that?
The third ray. Not ringing a bell.
So it's all about seeking out a really wise outside perspective when you're facing a tough decision. Like not just asking your friends or going with the flow.
Okay, I'm intrigued. So it's about finding someone with a different point of view, someone you trust to give you honest, insightful advice.
Right. Like maybe a mentor figure or a teacher you really respect or even a family friend who's been there, done that.
So it's about recognizing that you don't have all the answers, and sometimes it's okay to seek guidance from someone who's been there before.
Exactly. And it got me thinking like, who are my third ray people?
Yeah.
Who do I turn to when I need that kind of outside wisdom?
It's a great question to ask yourself, actually. We could all probably benefit from having a few third-ray figures in our lives.
Totally. All right, let's move on to another big theme the book dives into, belief.
Okay, belief as in believing yourself.
Exactly, but not in some kind of cheesy, mystical way, but more about having confidence in your own abilities and potential.
Okay, so like self-efficacy.
Yes. And to explain it, the book uses this analogy that I absolutely love.
Oh, I love a good analogy. Lay it on me.
All right, so imagine a child is like a sapling, right? And self-belief is the fertilizer.
I like that. So the sapling might still grow without it, but it won't reach its full potential.
Exactly. It's so powerful, that analogy. And it really ties into that whole law of attraction thing, Like the more you believe in yourself and your abilities.
Totally. You're putting that energy out there, and it can totally shape your reality.
Exactly. And to illustrate this point even further, the book actually talks about this experiment called the Emoto water experiment.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one. It's the one where they, talk to water, right?
Yeah, basically, they exposed water crystals to different words, some positive, some negative, and supposedly the crystals actually changed shape based on the words used.
It's wild. I mean, I don't know how scientifically sound it is, but it makes you think.
Right. Like, if words can have that kind of impact on water, imagine what our own self-talk is doing to us.
It's a powerful thought. Our thoughts and beliefs really do have a huge impact on our lives.
Totally. Okay, speaking of powerful thoughts, let's talk about positivity. This is another big theme in the book.
Okay, so looking on the bright side, glass half full kind of stuff.
Yeah. But it goes a little deeper than that. It's not just about slapping on a happy face and pretending everything's perfect. It's about shifting your mindset.
Right, because that whole toxic positivity thing can be just as bad as being negative all the time.
Exactly. The book really emphasizes finding that balance between acknowledging challenges but still choosing to focus on the good.
So it's more about resilience,
Yeah.
right? Bouncing back from setbacks and approaching things with a solutions-oriented mindset.
Exactly. And speaking of bouncing back, the book actually talks about how to deal with pressure, criticism, and even mistakes in a way that helps you grow.
Okay, so Turning those negative experiences into something positive. I like it.
Right. So with pressure, imagine this. You're having dinner, and you accidentally spill soup all over yourself.
Oh, no. Talk about a dinner disaster.
Right. Now, do you freak out, get angry, let it ruin your night, or do you take a breath and respond calmly?
It's like, yeah, it's a bummer, but freaking out isn't going to magically unspill the soup, right?
Exactly. And sometimes things just happen. It's how we respond to those situations that really matters.
Makes sense. So how about criticism? That can be a tough one to handle, especially for teenagers.
Oh, totally. But the book actually uses a really cool example to illustrate this. It talks about ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, and their mission to Mars Mangalian.
Oh, wow, that's ambitious.
Right. And the book talks about how the scientists working on that mission, they basically had to criticize their own work, like relentlessly.
Really. So they were basically trying to poke holes in their own plans.
Yeah. They knew that the stakes were incredibly high, so they came up with something like 250 scenarios where things could go wrong.
Wow. Talk about planning for every possibility.
Right. And they did all that to make sure they had backups in place to ensure the mission's success.
That's incredible. So it's about turning that criticism, even if it's about your own work, into a learning experience.
Exactly. It's about using it to improve and grow, not letting it crush you.
Okay, I'm starting to see the pattern here. So pressure, criticism. What was the last one?
Mistakes. Which, let's be real, we all make them.
Oh, for sure. Especially as teenagers. It's like
Right.
part of figuring things out, right?
Yeah, totally. And the book doesn't shy away from that. It acknowledges that failure is just part of life, but it's what you do after you mess up that counts.
So true. Dwelling on it won't get you anywhere, right? It's about learning from those experiences and moving forward.
Exactly. And you want to know who else made a few mistakes along the way? J.K. Rowling,
J.K. Rowling, the Harry Potter lady.
the one and only. Did you know she got rejected by a ton of publishers before someone finally picked up Harry Potter?
No way. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, Harry Potter is like a global phenomenon.
I know. It's crazy to think that those stories almost didn't make it out into the world because she got discouraged by rejection.
It's a good reminder that even the most successful people have faced setbacks, and it's how they handle those challenges that sets them apart.
Totally. And the book emphasizes that it's not about being perfect. It's about having that growth mindset,
Yeah.
seeing mistakes, not as failures, but as learning opportunities.
It's all about perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. All right, ready for another big theme?
Hit me with it.
This one's all about attitude.
Oh, attitude.
Yeah.
Like how you carry yourself, how you present yourself to the world.
Exactly. And the book shares a really great story about this. The author actually got to meet Amitabh Bachchan.
Amitabh Bachchan, the legendary Bollywood actor. Wow. What was the author's takeaway from that experience?
He was totally starstruck, obviously, but what really stood out to him wasn't Bachchan's fame, but his attitude. He was so humble and kind, really down to earth.
So it's a reminder that true success isn't about acting like you're better than everyone else. It's about being grounded and treating others with respect.
Exactly. And the book talks about how our attitude can have a huge impact on our relationships and the opportunities that come our way.
Makes sense. People are drawn to those who have a positive and respectful demeanor.
Totally. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and revisit that smart race concept we touched on earlier.
Oh yeah, finding your own path, even if it means straying from the beaten path.
Exactly. And in this section, the book uses some pretty shocking statistics about those super competitive exams in India, like the JEE and CA exam.
Oh yeah, those are notorious for being insanely difficult. I've heard horror stories.
Right. And the author uses those exams to illustrate the intense pressure a lot of young people feel to follow this predetermined path, even if it's not the right fit for them.
It's like everyone's trying to cram onto the same train, even if it's not going where they want to go.
Perfectly said. And that's why the author is such a proponent of the smart race. It's about figuring out what you're good at, what lights you up, and going after that, even if it's different from what everyone else is doing.
So it's about forging your own path, even if it means taking some risks and venturing into uncharted territory.
Exactly. And the book even features an interview with a teenager who's already doing that, building a successful business.
Wow, that's inspiring. It's proof that you don't have to wait until you're older to start chasing your dreams.
Totally. Okay, ready to dive into another important topic?
Bring it on.
This one's all about money, or more specifically, financial literacy.
Oh, interesting. Even for teenagers, that's not something you usually see in self-help books for that age group.
Right. But the author makes a really compelling point. He talks about the rising cost of education in India and how important it is for young people to be financially savvy even now.
That's so true. It's never too early to start learning about managing your money.
Exactly. And the book breaks down some really practical concepts like the 50-30-20 rule for budgeting.
50-30-20. Refresh my memory.
So it's basically allocating your income like this: 50% for needs, 30% for wants, and 20% for savings and investments.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a simple framework, but it can make a huge difference, especially if you start young.
Exactly. And speaking of starting young, the book also talks about the power of compound interest.
Oh, the snowball effect. I love it. It's like magic how your money can grow exponentially over time.
Right. And to illustrate this, the book actually uses the chessboard analogy.
Oh, the one with the grains of rice. That's a classic. Lay it on me.
So imagine you have a chessboard, right? And you put 1 grain of rice on the first square, 2 on the second, 4 on the third, and so on.
Okay, I'm picturing it. And you keep doubling the number of grains on each square.
Exactly. And even though it starts small, by the time you get to the last square, you have this massive pile of rice.
It's mind-blowing how quickly it adds up.
Right. And it's the same concept with compound interest. The earlier you start investing, even small amounts, the more time your money has to grow exponentially.
And the book even gives a real-life example. Warren Buffett. He started investing when he was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look at him now. It really highlights the importance of starting early, even if it's just a little bit here and there.
It's all about building those good habits early on.
Exactly. Okay, ready for our final theme. And it's a big one.
Time.
Time management. That's something we could all use a little help with.
Tell me about it. And the book kicks off this section with a pretty sobering statistic. The average person only has about 18 truly free years in an 80-year lifespan.
Wait, 18 years? That's it. How do they figure that?
Well, it's after you factor in sleep, work, commuting, taking care of essential tasks, all that stuff.
Wow, that's eye-opening. It really makes you want to be intentional about how you spend your time.
Right. And it's not just about leisure time. The book actually emphasizes how important it is to prioritize things like getting enough sleep, even for super successful people like Elon Musk.
Really? I always pictured him as someone who runs on caffeine and ambition 24/7.
Well, the book makes a really good point. Rest is essential for peak performance, no matter what you're doing. And of course, it talks about the benefits of being an early riser.
Oh yeah, the early bird gets the worm, as they say.
Yeah,
Those quiet hours in the morning can be so productive.
totally. And the book also goes into some really helpful time management techniques, like the Pomodoro technique and the Eisenhower matrix.
Oh, I love those. The Pomodoro technique is a game changer for focus. And the Eisenhower matrix is great for prioritizing tasks.
Right. They're all about working smarter, not harder. And the book also encourages readers to identify their time leaks, those activities that suck up our time without us even realizing it.
Like endless scrolling on social media.
Exactly. Or getting sidetracked by every notification that pops up on our phones.
It's easy to fall into those traps.
Right. So it's about being more mindful of how we're spending those precious minutes and hours in our day and making conscious choices about where our time goes. It really makes you stop and think about where your time goes, you know. But anyway, before we wrap up this deep dive, there's one final point from the book I want to leave you with.
Oh yeah. What's that?
So it ends with this really powerful question, and it really stuck with me. It asks, what's one small change you can make today to invest in your own growth?
Ooh, I like that. It's a call to action.
Right. It's like this little nudge to take charge of your own development. And it doesn't have to be some big dramatic thing. Even starting small can make a difference in the long run.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Yeah.
Just taking those little steps forward day by day.
Exactly. And you know, it's funny because when I first picked up this book, I thought, okay, a teenager wrote this. What can I really learn? But honestly, I'm walking away feeling pretty inspired.
Me too.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you, you never know where you're going to find wisdom.
Right. Sometimes the simplest advice can be the most profound.
Absolutely.
So there you have it, folks. Our deep dive into the world of teenage self-help. Who knew it could be so insightful?
Right. Proof that no matter how old you are, we're all still learning and growing.
Totally. And hey, if a teenager can write a book packed with this much wisdom, imagine what you can do. All right, that's it for today. Until next time, keep those minds open and keep exploring those new perspectives.